Stop Nuclear Madness Headquarters, Berkeley, California. Wednesday, 12:36 p.m. Scully took the rental car and drove alone into Berkeley, following familiar highways. Now, though, she sensed she had become an intruder in a place where she had once felt at home. Heading down Telegraph Avenue towards the campus, Scully saw that the university remained basically unchanged. It stood like an island of its own ferociously independent culture, the People's Republic of Berkeley, while the rest of the world went on its way. Scully parked in a public ramp and walked out into the sunshine, pushing sunglasses up on her nose and scanning the streets to get her bearings. She walked along, glancing at kiosks announcing student film festivals, rallies, and fundraising events. Tracking building numbers, Scully finally found the Stop Nuclear Madness headquarters in a tall, old building that looked as if it could have been the set for a courthouse in an old black-and-white movie. A diner and a coffee shop shared the street level of the building with a large new and used bookstore that catered to students. A short flight of concrete steps led down from the sidewalk below street level. An easel propped beside the stairs held a poster board with stenciled letters announcing the protest group and something called the Museum of Nuclear Horrors. She pushed open the basement door and entered the Stop Nuclear Madness headquarters. She felt transported back in time. She remembered when she had been younger, filled with enthusiasm to change the world. As she entered the small offices, the woman behind the desk turned to give her an automatic smile, but froze with instant suspicion upon seeing her professional garb. Scully felt a sinking in her stomach. The young receptionist was in her early 20s, with skin the color of light milk chocolate and bushy hair knotted into a Medusa swirl of dangling dreadlocks. Scully pulled out her ID. "I'm Special Agent Dana Scully from the FBI. I'm here to speak with a Miss Muriel Bremen." Becca Thorne's eyebrows went up. I'll see if she's here," she said. Her voice was cold and uninviting, her guard up. Again, Scully felt a pang of disappointment. "Yes, Agent Scully?" a woman's terse voice said. Scully turned to see Muriel Bremen, a tall woman with short, wavy brown hair, cut in an unflattering, squarish style. She was not an attractive woman, but her bearing and her voice bespoke a no-nonsense quality of intelligence. "Now what did we do?" Muriel said impatiently, not allowing Scully to speak. "I'm getting tired of all this harassment. We filed the appropriate papers, given the required notices, obtained the correct permits. What on earth has my group done to attract the attention of the FBI?" "I'm not investigating your group, Miss Bremen," Scully said. "I'm looking into the death of a Dr. Emil Gregory 2 days ago at the Teller Nuclear Research Facility." Muriel Bremen's countenance cracked, and she seemed to sag. "Oh," she said. "Emil, that's different." She paused, gripping the receptionist's table with one clenched hand, and took a deep breath. Becca Thorne watched to see if she could help, then surreptitiously disappeared to attend the photocopy machine. "Sure, let's talk, Agent Scully," Muriel Bremen said. "But not here." Muriel Bremen led the way to a small microbrewery and restaurant only a few blocks' walk from the heart of the university. "You order food over there." Muriel indicated a small counter. "The vegetarian chili is a specialty, but the soup's pretty good too, and, of course, a sandwich is a sandwich is a sandwich. People come here for the beer, best you'll find anywhere." When they returned to their table, Scully tried to think of where to begin, but Muriel preempted her. The protester seemed to have no problems with self-expression, bypassing time-consuming pleasantries and the dance of conversational give-and-take before Scully could get around to the real questions. "So let me tell you why I think you're here," she said. "It's one of two possibilities. Either you think I or someone from my protest group has in some way caused the death of Emil Gregory, or you've been stymied by your escorts at Teller, your lack of appropriate security clearances, and your inability to access classified documents. Nobody'll tell you anything, and you've come here thinking that I can give you some answers." Scully spoke slowly. "A little of both, Miss Bremen. I've completed the autopsy on Dr. Gregory. There's little doubt as to primary injuries that resulted in his death, but I haven't yet been able to determine how they came about. What did Dr. Gregory stumble into that caused his death? I'll have to admit your protest group does have a credible motive for wanting Dr. Gregory out of the picture, so I have to investigate it. I also know that Dr. Gregory, a man you worked with, was involved in some sort of new classified weapons project, something called Bright Anvil. But nobody will tell us what that is, and here you are, Miss Bremen, at the intersection of both of my lines of reasoning. Well, then let me tell you something, Muriel said, folding her hands around her pint of dark beer and taking a long swallow. It sounds cliched to say that I have nothing to hide, but in this instance I truly don't. It works to my benefit to tell more and more people about what's really going on at the Teller Nuclear Research Facility. I've been trying to blow the whistle for the past year. Here, I've brought along some of our group's brochures. She reached into her pocket and handed over 2 of the hand-folded photocopied pamphlets that some volunteer had no doubt designed and laid out on a personal computer. Back when I worked at the Teller facility, I was quite a devoted assistant to Dr. Gregory, she said, settling her long chin into her hand. For many years, Emil was my mentor. He helped me along through the politics and the paperwork and the progress reports so I could do some real work. But you had some sort of falling out, Scully said. In a way, but not exactly like that, Muriel said, then sidestepped the question. You want to know what Bright Anvil is. It's an unorthodox type of nuclear explosive. These days, despite the end of the Cold War and the supposed downscaling of nuclear weapons development, Bright Anvil is a very special type of warhead using a technology that... She paused, then stared at the walls. It's a technology that seems to operate beyond the laws of physics, as I know them, and I do know physics, Agent Scully. The whole Bright Anvil project was invisible on the ledger sheets. It was funded by non-traditional means, money skimmed from other projects to pay for new tests, new research, unorthodox concepts. It was never listed on any budget ever submitted to Congress, and you won't be able to track it down. Emil had worked in the nuclear weapons industry for many years. He was even at the Trinity test himself back in 1945. She smiled wanly. He used to tell her stories. Her lips trembled for just a moment, but she covered it by eating some of her chili. But by now he was at the end of his career. He thought he was covering it up from all of us, but I don't think he was in very good health. Scully nodded, but did not ask any questions. Emil wanted to do something important to end his career on a high point. Then Bright Anvil fell in his lap. Someone else had done the preliminary physics. We got designs for exotic high-energy pulse power sources. It was a done deal. The components worked, although I couldn't figure out how or why, but Emil didn't worry about that. He got all excited. He saw how such technology could be used to create a fundamentally new kind of warhead. Emil took it and ran with it. Even from the start, I had my doubts, but I kidded myself. I followed along because Emil was my mentor. This was our new project. I helped him run simulations, exercises that had little likelihood of ever coming about for real. But the more I worked with it, the creepier it became. Bright Anvil was just too weird. It didn't seem to come from any physics I was ever taught in school. No technology I know can do what it does. Some of the components of the device were fabricated elsewhere. We never knew where or how. We just received them from the program offices in Washington. Then, in one of those serendipitous occurrences, I went to a conference in Japan. Just out of curiosity, I took a side trip to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like a weapons researcher's pilgrimage. Both cities have been rebuilt by now, but it's like putting makeup over a scar. I began to check into things. Do you know what they did to the Marshall Islands with the nuclear tests in the 50s? Do you know how many Pacific Islanders were booted off their homes, their peaceful, idyllic island existence, just so somebody could blow up a big bomb? Yes, said Scully. I know. Muriel Bremen abruptly stood, having finished most of her lunch. She brushed off the front of her shirt. I Apologize, I was giving you a sermon. She nudged the Stop Nuclear Madness brochures across the booth closer to Scully.